He who dwells in the secret place of the Most High shall abide under the shadow of the Almighty. I will say of the Lord, He is my refuge and my fortress, my God, in Him I will trust. These opening lines of Psalm 91 are not just poetic. They are deeply spiritual and profoundly personal. They introduce us to a truth that can redefine how we face life's uncertainties, that there is a shelter, a secret place, where those who love God can rest in peace and safety, even while storms rage all around them. But what does it mean to dwell in the secret place of the Most High? To dwell is not to visit. It's not a temporary stop. It's not like checking in on Sunday morning and leaving on Monday to face the world alone. Dwelling means staying. It implies constancy, permanence, a lifestyle. The secret place is not a hidden physical location, but a spiritual position. It is the heart posture of one who seeks daily communion with God, who abides in His presence, who makes God's presence their home, not a guest house. To dwell in the secret place means to live close to God, under His rule and in His care. This kind of closeness is not automatic. It is cultivated. The secret place is accessed through prayer, worship, surrender, and intimacy with God. It's a place where we come not because we are perfect, but because we are dependent. It's where we speak to God in honesty, and where He speaks to us in truth. And it is in that place that we discover something priceless. We are not alone. We are not exposed. We are not without covering. We are under the shadow of the Almighty. The image of a shadow here is powerful. A shadow means nearness. You cannot be in someone's shadow unless you are close to them. So, when the psalmist says, "We shall abide under the shadow of the Almighty," he is describing a relationship of closeness and trust. It is as though we are walking right next to the Lord Himself, so close that His presence overshadows us. That shadow represents not just His nearness, but His protection. It is like the wings of a great eagle covering her young, shielding them from harm. It is like the strong walls of a fortress, a spiritual barricade between us and danger. To dwell under the shadow of the Almighty also implies something else, surrender. We must choose to stay close. We must allow God to cover us. In a world that tempts us to rely on our own strength, our own wisdom, and our own resources, Psalm 91 reminds us that true safety is not in what we build, but in where we dwell. We often run from one solution to another, one person to another, one plan to another, but the secret place invites us to run to God first, not as a last resort, but as our first home. And this shelter, this divine covering, is not a place free from trouble, but it is a place where trouble cannot undo us. Life will bring storms, winds will blow, but in the secret place of the Most High we remain anchored. The ground may shake around us, but the foundation beneath us is unmovable, because it is not made of human promises. It is rooted in the nature of God Himself. He is called the Most High, reminding us that He is above all, above danger, above fear, above any power that may try to harm us. And He is the Almighty, reminding us that there is no force greater than Him, no weapon stronger than His will, no storm that can scatter those who stand beneath His protection. That's why the psalmist follows with a declaration, "I will say of the Lord, He is my refuge and my fortress, my God, in Him I will trust." This is more than just a statement, it is a decision. It is a personal confession of faith. He doesn't say the Lord is a refuge or a fortress. He says, He is my refuge, He is my fortress. Faith becomes real when it becomes personal. When we stop speaking about God only in general terms and begin to declare who He is to us, something changes. Our hearts are anchored, our fears lose power, Our confidence is no longer in ourselves, but in Him. And what is a fortress, if not a place of security in times of war? The psalmist knows that life is a battlefield. He is not naive about the dangers that surround him, but he knows something greater than danger. He knows his defender. In calling God his fortress, he is saying, no matter what surrounds me, I am surrounded by something greater. In calling him his refuge, he is saying, when I need shelter, I don't need to run far. I only need to rest in him. Many of us are searching for peace, for a sense of safety in a world that feels increasingly chaotic. We chase security through success, relationships, finances, or control, but none of these can truly shield our hearts. Psalm 91 reminds us that the only true and lasting shelter is the presence of God. When we dwell there, when we abide there, when we return there daily, not out of obligation, but out of love, we find rest that the world cannot offer. We find confidence that no fear can steal. We find that even in the midst of uncertainty, we are held. We are protected, we are home. So today, if you feel weary or exposed, if the storms are loud and the threats feel real, remember, there is a secret place. You are invited, you are welcome. And in that place, under the shadow of the Almighty, you will find what your soul has been searching for: peace, protection, and the powerful presence of a God who never fails. Choose to dwell there. Surely he shall deliver you from the snare of the fowler and from the perilous pestilence. These words are bold. They don't suggest that deliverance is possible or probable. They declare it with certainty. Surely he shall deliver. This is not the language of doubt, but the voice of assurance. The psalmist is not guessing, he is testifying. He knows who God is and what God does. And what God does, consistently, faithfully, powerfully, is deliver his people from danger. The snare of the fowler is an ancient image, but still relevant. A fowler is a bird trapper, and his snare is often hidden, subtle, deceptive, designed to catch the unsuspecting. In the same way, life is full of invisible traps. Temptation, manipulation, toxic relationships, false teachings, and spiritual attacks all lie in wait like snares in our path. We often don't see them coming until we're entangled, but Psalm 91 tells us that God sees what we don't. He knows every trap before it springs, every scheme before it's set, and he doesn't just warn us, he delivers us. Sometimes he pulls us out after we've been caught. Sometimes he steers us away before we even know we were in danger. But in every case, his hand of rescue is sure. Then there is the perilous pestilence, a phrase that brings to mind sickness, plague, or widespread fear. In biblical times, pestilence could devastate communities and wipe out populations. Today, we face our own versions: pandemics, disease, and the deep, lingering anxiety that health threats can bring. And yet, in the face of such danger, the psalmist says God is not absent or powerless. He delivers from even this. The world may be shaken, but those who trust in the Lord are held, not because they are immune to suffering, but because God's protection goes beyond physical healing. It reaches the soul. It brings peace in the panic. It calms the heart in the chaos. Deliverance in God's hands is not always escape. It is often endurance with grace. The next verses build upon this theme. He shall cover you with his feathers, and under his wings you shall take refuge. This is such a tender image. God is pictured not as a distant ruler, but as a nurturing protector, like a mother bird gathering her chicks beneath her wings. It's an image of warmth, closeness, and unbreakable safety. The feathers represent nearness, the wings represent power. And right there, nestled beneath his care, we find a refuge that danger cannot penetrate. The psalm continues, his truth shall be your shield and buckler. This tells us that our defense is not just in God's presence, but in His promises. His truth, His unchanging word, is our shield. Not wishful thinking, not vague optimism, but the solid, enduring truth of who God is and what He has spoken. When lies come at us, lies that say we are alone, unloved, unprotected, God's truth deflects them. When fear bombards our minds, God's promises become armor. Truth is not just an idea here, it is a weapon. And in a world filled with deception and distortion, God's truth remains firm, reliable, and strong enough to protect. You shall not be afraid of the terror by night, nor of the arrow that flies by day. Fear is one of the most pervasive dangers we face, not always physical, but emotional and spiritual. Nighttime terror can mean the unseen fears that torment us in the dark: anxiety, depression, loneliness. The arrows by day can be the visible threats: violence, criticism, spiritual warfare. But the promise here is not that these things won't exist. It's that they will not dominate or destroy the one who trusts in God. Fear loses its grip when we know we are not alone. Courage is not the absence of threats. It is the presence of God in the midst of them. 1,000 may fall at your side, and 10,000 at your right hand, but it shall not come near you. These words are stunning in their boldness. They describe a scene of mass destruction, a battlefield or a plague where many fall, but the one who trusts in God stands untouched. This is not an invitation to arrogance or to believe that believers are immune from all harm. Instead, it paints a picture of divine selection, not favoritism, but faithfulness. When disaster surrounds us, it is easy to believe we will be next, but the psalm says, "Not so for the one who dwells in God's presence." He can preserve you even when all seems lost. He can make you stand when others fall, not because of your strength, but because of His mercy. And then, only with your eyes shall you look, and see the reward of the wicked. This reminds us that God is not blind to injustice. He is not deaf to evil. There is a righteous judgment, and God is not mocked. The deliverance He brings is not just from physical danger, but from alignment with the wicked. He separates His people from those who plot evil. This verse is both a promise of protection and a call to holiness. We are delivered not only from danger, but unto God's purposes. Deliverance, then, is multi-dimensional. It is physical, yes, but also emotional, spiritual, and moral. God delivers us from traps we don't see, from fear that threatens to consume, from enemies that seek to destroy, and from the judgment that belongs to the wicked. Psalm 91 does not promise that we will never face hardship, but it does promise that God's presence is our constant companion in the midst of it. He covers, shields, protects, rescues, and restores. To believe this is not naive. It is faith rooted in a faithful God. When we cling to this truth that our deliverance is not based on our perfection, but on His promise, we find a peace that surpasses understanding. No matter what comes, we are never outside the reach of our deliverer. Surely He shall deliver, for He shall give His angels charge over you, to keep you in all your ways. This verse opens a window into the unseen world of divine protection. It lifts the veil on something most of us forget in the day-to-day, that we are not alone. We are surrounded, watched over, accompanied not just by friends and family, but by heavenly beings tasked by God Himself to protect and guide us. These are not myths or symbolic ideas. The Word of God clearly tells us that angels are real, and they are part of His plan of care for His children. Angels are not just beautiful images in stained glass windows or stories for bedtime. They are messengers, warriors, and guardians sent by the Almighty. The idea that God gives His angels charge over you means He assigns them specific responsibility. This is not random or general, it is intentional and personal. God commands his angels to keep us. That word keep carries great weight. It means to watch, guard, preserve, and protect. It means they are with us when we walk into a new place, when we drive on dangerous roads, when we face spiritual warfare, when we lie down to sleep, and when we rise in the morning. Their mission is clear: keep the children of God safe. What's even more powerful is that this angelic assignment is not temporary or occasional. The Scripture says they will keep us in all your ways, and not just some, not just the religious or obvious ones. All your ways, your work, your home, your travel, your relationships, your struggles, your dreams. Angels are on assignment during your entire journey, through every season, through every unknown. Even when you are unaware, even when you feel vulnerable, even when danger seems near, God's angels are present. And they do not act on their own. They respond to God's word and obey his voice. The next verse adds more beauty to this mystery. In their hands they shall bear you up, lest you dash your foot against a stone. Picture that God's angels carrying you, lifting you, preventing even the smallest harm. A stone in the road could be enough to cause a stumble, a twisted ankle, a fall. But even in these small, seemingly insignificant moments, God's care is complete. This is the kindness of his attention. Nothing is beneath his notice. Nothing is too small for his protection. Sometimes we look for big miracles and forget that God's deliverance often comes in small moments we never even realized were dangerous. How many things has God prevented that we never knew about? How many car accidents, temptations, illnesses, attacks, and mistakes has he spared us from through unseen help? It is also worth noting that this specific verse was later quoted by Satan when he tempted Jesus in the wilderness. The enemy twisted it, trying to use Scripture to tempt Christ to test God's protection by throwing himself off a high place. But Jesus, in wisdom, resisted. This reminds us that even good things, like angelic promises, must be received with humility and trust, not arrogance or recklessness. God's protection is not a license to be careless. It is a foundation on which to walk wisely. We are not to test God's care, but to trust it. The presence of angels is a gift, not a game. Their help is real, but it does not cancel our responsibility to live in obedience and discernment. Then the psalmist shifts the language again. You shall tread upon the lion and the cobra, the young lion and the serpent you shall trample underfoot. This is not just about defense, it's about victory. It's not just about being protected from harm, but about having authority over it. Lions and serpents represent two kinds of threats: open attacks and subtle deception. The lion roars, intimidating, loud, aggressive. The serpent hides, cunning, quiet, deceptive. But both are subject to the authority God gives to his people. Through his protection and angelic assistance, you are not only shielded, but empowered. You can step on what others fear. You can walk forward even when surrounded by danger. You are not a passive victim in God's plan. You are a victorious child under divine authority. What an astonishing picture this paints. Angels above us, dangers below us, and God around us. The believer is not isolated or defenseless. The forces of heaven are on our side, and yet all of this flows from one truth mentioned earlier in the psalm, the decision to make the Lord our dwelling place. Because you have made the Lord, who is my refuge, even the Most High, your dwelling place, this angelic protection is assured. It's not a blanket promise for the casual believer, but for the one who abides, for the one who walks in step with God, for the one who chooses God's presence over convenience, his word over the world, his ways over comfort. That kind of life invites the fullness of His protection. This doesn't mean we'll never face hardship. It doesn't mean danger will never come near, but it does mean that when it does, it won't succeed. God's purpose will still stand. The angels won't let you fall without a rescue. The enemy won't have the final word. You may walk through valleys, but you won't walk through them alone. You may feel pressure, but you will not be crushed. You may feel surrounded, but you are not forsaken. And so we can live with confidence, not pride, not recklessness, but peace. We can sleep knowing angels stand guard. We can speak with boldness, knowing heaven backs us. We can walk into the unknown with faith, knowing every step is observed by God's watchful messengers. We can face battles with courage, knowing help is closer than we think. Psalm 91 is not exaggeration or fantasy. It is a divine reality for those who walk closely with the Lord. The angels of God are not far. They are near, they are ready, and they are committed to the assignments God gives them. And their assignment, incredibly, is you. That is the love of God. That is the confidence of the one who dwells in the secret place of the Most High. Because He has set His love upon me, therefore I will deliver him. I will set him on high, because he has known my name. With these words, the voice of the psalm shifts. Until now, we have heard the voice of the psalmist declaring truths about God's protection, God's covering, and God's deliverance. But in these final verses, we hear something even more intimate, more powerful, the very voice of God Himself. God speaks directly, no longer through the psalmist, but in His own divine voice, offering assurance to the one who loves Him. It is personal and it is unmistakable. God begins not with a command, but with a reason, because He has set His love upon me. This is the foundation of everything that follows. The blessings of this psalm, the protection, the deliverance, the angelic assistance, the safety in times of trouble, are all rooted in a relationship. Not ritual, not religion, not routine, but love. God responds to the one who truly loves Him. Not a shallow love based on circumstances or convenience, but a love that is set, fixed, unshakable. The kind of love that holds fast to God when everything else is falling apart. The kind of love that chooses God again and again, not just in moments of worship, but in the secret decisions of the heart. Because He has set His love upon me, therefore I will deliver him. This is God's personal promise to the one whose heart belongs to Him. He doesn't say, I might deliver, or I could deliver. He says, I will. The certainty here is breathtaking. God's commitment is total. He is not hesitant. He is not holding back. He is saying to the believer, your love has reached me, and my response is rescue. This deliverance is not earned. It is given in response to devotion. It is not a reward for performance, but a gift of relationship. Then He says, I will set him on high, because he has known my name. Again, it's personal, not because of religious status or public recognition, but because he has known my name. To know God's name is more than just to be aware of it. It's to understand who He is, to experience His character, to trust in His reputation. In biblical language, a name represents nature, authority, and relationship. To know God's name is to walk in intimacy with Him, to call on Him in truth, to trust His heart even when we don't understand His hand. And what does God do for those who know His name? He lifts them up. I will set him on high. He exalts them, secures them, elevates them above the reach of danger. This is not the world's version of success. It's divine security. Being set on high by God means being given a position of peace, of honor, of spiritual safety. The storms may rage below, but the child of God stands above them, not by climbing, but by trusting. God lifts, God holds, and God places his people where no enemy can snatch them from his hand. Then comes another promise: he shall call upon me, and I will answer him. What assurance! The God of the universe commits himself to respond to our voice. There is no voicemail, no waiting in line, no unanswered prayers. When we call, he answers. That doesn't always mean he gives what we ask in the way we expect, but it always means he hears. He responds, he comes near. The believer never prays into a void. Our prayers go straight to the heart of a Father who listens with love and responds with wisdom. I will be with him in trouble. Notice God doesn't say we'll never face trouble. In fact, he assumes we will. But he promises his presence in the trouble. That's sometimes the deeper miracle, not being spared from every trial, but never being alone in them. He is not just a distant protector who sends help from afar. He comes himself. He is Emmanuel, God with us. In the fire, in the flood, in the silence, in the struggle he is there, and his presence is our peace. But it doesn't end there. I will deliver him and honor him. God not only pulls us out of trouble, he restores us with dignity. He delivers, yes, but he also honors. He doesn't just rescue us and leave us limping. He lifts us with grace and restores what was lost. The world may try to shame us, the enemy may try to condemn us, but God speaks honor over his children. He robes us in righteousness and gives us value that cannot be taken away. His deliverance is full. It heals the heart, the soul, the story. Then the promise continues, with long life I will satisfy him. This speaks not just to duration of days, but to the quality of life under God's care. It is a life marked by satisfaction, not necessarily by luxury, but by peace. To be satisfied means to be full, to have enough, to experience the goodness of God in the land of the living. It means living without regret, walking in God's purpose, enjoying his presence. A long life under God's hand is a meaningful life, shaped not by quantity alone, but by contentment and blessing. And finally, God says, "And show him my salvation." This is the climax of the entire psalm. All the protection, the promises, the presence, all of it leads here. Salvation, not just physical safety, but eternal security. Not just rescue from danger, but redemption from sin. To see God's salvation is to experience the fullness of his love and the depth of his grace. It is to walk not only in the shadow of his wings, but into the light of his eternal kingdom. Salvation is the ultimate assurance. It is the seal of God's favor and the anchor of our hope. And so, we end Psalm 91 not with fear, but with faith. Not with worry, but with worship. The voice of God speaks peace over the one who loves him, knows him, and calls upon him. His promises are not poetic exaggerations, they are eternal truths. They are the inheritance of every believer who dwells in the secret place, who abides in his presence, who trusts in his name. This is the voice of God's assurance, and when he speaks, we can rest.